started causing mayhem, many more children had been sent away until it was safe for them to return, and there were times when she wondered if she was being reckless in keeping Daisy with her. But life was hard enough, and selfish or not, she clung to Daisy in the desperate hope that nothing bad would happen to her. Daisy would be 3 in December, and although Jim had managed to see her as a babe in arms before he'd been posted to India, the child had no memory of him. Peggy had told her stories about Jim and made sure there were photographs of him around the house, but she suspected Daisy didn't really understand who and what he was, and when he did finally come home, he'd be a stranger to her. Daisy wouldn't be alone in that dilemma, she thought sadly. The majority of those children in the playground had fathers fighting abroad and had become used to just being with their mothers, and the sudden appearance of a man in the house would come as a shock. Peggy puffed on her cigarette and frowned as it occurred to her that as much as she longed for Jim to come home, it wouldn't be easy to return to the routine of their life before the war. In fact, she wasn't at all sure she wanted to go back to that now she'd tasted the heady freedom of life beyond the walls of Beach View, and her own money. If she took Solly's job, then she'd be reluctant to give it up, and that could cause no end of trouble. Jim was a man who believed that a woman's place was in the home, and as the breadwinner he expected his tea on the table at 6, to always have clean shirts and pressed trousers, and to reserve the right to go to the pub whenever he wanted, usually without her. In this he was like every man she knew, and she suspected there would be ructions in most Cliffehaven homes once the men returned home, expecting nothing to have changed, and finding a very different setup. Impatient with these uncomfortable thoughts, she took a last puff on her cigarette and stubbed it out. There was no point in being gloomy about things. Jim's experiences in Burma must have changed him too, and when he did come home, they would work together to steer their way through the difficulties and find a new order. Peggy drank her tea and watched the gulls hover above the rooftops, their mournful cries lost in the roar of the planes that seemed to be a constant background noise now they were flying sorties day and night. Even if by some miracle the war did end soon, it could be weeks or even months before Jim could get home, so she might as well accept Solly's offer while she had the chance and deal with any fallout later. Having finally come to a decision, she felt her spirits lighten. She replaced the cap on her thermos and went back inside to climb the stairs up to Solly's office. There was no sign of Madge, his secretary, but his door was ajar, and she could see he was alone at his desk. "Hello, Solly. Have you got a minute?" Solly's smile was warm as he eased his large frame out of the leather chair.
"Oy vey, Peggy, I've always time for you, you know that. Come in, come in."
Peggy had known Solly most of her life, and although some might find his large presence and big personality daunting, she'd always been comfortable with him, for beneath the facade of wealth and power beat a soft and understanding heart.
"How are you, Peggy?"
he asked, lighting her cigarette and watching her intently. "Struggling on," she replied. "At least my Jim's still safe in that hospital in India and not having to face the Japs in Burma." She regarded him with great sympathy. "I was so sorry to hear about what happened in Poland, Solly. Is there any news of your family?" He shook his great head, his dark eyes shadowed with pain.
"It's difficult to get any news out of Poland at the moment, and what has emerged is so horrifying it's almost better not to know what's going on. How has young Danuta taken the defeat of the uprising?"
Peggy gave a sigh as she thought of the Polish girl who'd returned from her dangerous missions behind enemy lines to come and live with her at Beach View. "She's being stoic as usual, but she's bitterly disappointed it all came to nothing." Solly nodded thoughtfully and then changed the subject.
"I hope you've come to tell me you'll take up my offer, Peggy. There have been developments, and despite the fact this war looks as if it's going to drag on into a new year, there are plans afoot and I need to get things organised."
Peggy frowned. "What developments? I thought you were planning to go back into the ladies' wear trade again."
"I am, but I've been offered something rather more lucrative than frocks and with a guaranteed income."
His eyes shone with excitement, for there was nothing he relished more than a